The difference between a render and something that feels filmed comes down to your camera. In part 1 and 2, everything built on top of each other, starting simple and then adding more complexity. For part 3, we're completely switching it up. These are completely new foundations, but way more dynamic and realistic. And like always, you can follow along for free, but if you want the full project file, it's gonna be in my Gumroad, link in description. Let's go ahead and get to the breakdown. Camera animation number 1, the Curvy Spline camera. This is how you're gonna get those smooth cinematic fly-through shots. Alrighty, so the first thing we're gonna do here is we're just gonna Shift C, we're gonna type in figure, and we're gonna pull up our little guy here so we have a little bit of a reference to do the camera animation around. Just for reference, it's set up this exact way in the other videos as well. But wait, before we go any further, could you go to motiondirective.com/shop, get one of these hats? It would really help us out, and we're just gonna get back to the video. Okay, so once we have our figure in here, we're just gonna literally pop in our camera by going to Redshift, Camera, and Standard. If you press Control D, you're actually gonna see that you can find your FPS right here, which we're at 30 frames per second, and our project max is 90 frames, so that means we have about 3 seconds here. Not about, we have 3 seconds here. So for this first animation, we're gonna make it 5 seconds. So to do that math quickly, it's just gonna be 150 frames. We're gonna wanna feel the weight of the camera flying by, so it's gonna have to be a little bit longer. Right now, if we click into our camera, it's gonna be exactly where we set it up when we were looking through the viewport, but that's not really gonna matter because we're gonna end up attaching it to a spline. So first thing, right click, animation, and align to spline tag. You're also gonna wanna go to animation and put on a target tag, but we'll attach the actual positions to this in a second. Now I'm gonna hop out of my camera here and I'm just gonna view it from a different perspective. Obviously that's like the default position that you'll hop in when you open up a Cinema 4D file. Now what I'm gonna show you first is there's a bunch of splines here that you can choose from that you can do this exact same method with. In this part 3, it's gonna be a little bit more advanced in that we're gonna be drawing a custom spline and attaching the camera to that and adjusting the rotation of the position to make sure it matches. So keep in mind, when we draw this spline, it could be any spline that you draw. You can go ahead and get this project file and change the spline yourself, but the technique is wherever the spline is placed, the camera will glide along. So all you're gonna wanna do is go to this tool here on the left. It's called Spline Pen. Go ahead and click it. It's the same as making a spline from this button up here. If you press this toggle action view in the corner, it's actually gonna pull up with 4 views. This is easier for drawing splines correctly. If you're in the 3D view, it's gonna get really wonky. So using this top view, we're really gonna be able to cover the depth of how much we want it to fly by. I'm thinking we do some sort of like hook shape so that we can really target the subject and then fly by it, but we want to include some sort of dynamic movement across multiple axes with perfect rotation, which is going to all be set up for us with these 2 tags that we set up. So I'm just going to draw my spline right here. We're going to make that curve by drawing out like this, holding down my mouse right here, and then just continuing to make this shape here. And then maybe our final is Command Z right there just to reset. Maybe our final is somewhere like here. And we could just press escape to get out of that. Now we can go ahead and edit this and zoom in and realistically take these handles and try to make this curve really smooth, right? But the idea is you can make any shape here. I'm gonna go ahead and adjust this so it's kind of like center right before we leave frame. I'm gonna push this out a little bit more, and maybe that's more or less my shape. We're just gonna sort of edit it, and that's really what you have to do. Depending on like the objects in your scene, you're going to have to edit it. So I'm just moving this to my liking here. I believe everybody's gonna have a different idea of how to use this, but this is the organic spline method, so you really can get crazy with it. Now what we're gonna do with our camera here, and we can just do this all in this top view, obviously we're toggled and that's our main view right there. But what we're gonna do with our camera is literally just go to this tag on the right, and we're gonna drag the spline in there. Now, all we have to do is literally make a null right where the figure is, or we can attach it to the figure itself. Take this target and do the same thing. Boom. Now we're attached to the actual figure. And all that's left to do is take this spline path, animate a keyframe on the position, which is right here because my head's in the way a little bit, And then we go to the end of our animation and we essentially choose where we want it to end. Now, as you can see, it's following the spline path that we just drew out. Now, once I adjust this, it's going to be orange. You want it to be red by clicking it. That's going to lock in the position. So the default that this camera is going to do is it's going to do some sort of easing on the end of it. Now, it doesn't even come in linear. You can change it linear, but I just had to open up my F graph right quick by going to Window, Timeline, F curve instead of the dope sheet. So I'm just going to go ahead and press frame all, and I'm going to see my keyframe right here. I turned it into a linear keyframe. It's obviously going to come in defaulted at this interpolation, but right now I'm going to keep it linear for now, right? So this is our linear keyframe, right? Now let's go ahead and hop in this camera. Now, what's the problem? Oh, the actual null is at his feet. So when you spawn in a null, it's going to spawn in at 0, 0. You can obviously adjust it and the camera's going to go wherever the null goes, right? Pretty handy. So we're just going to try to center him right there. I believe this figure has a height. He's 180. So let's go ahead and put that null at around 90. That's going to center him perfectly. Now, if we had a ground plane, we may want to push it up a little bit more, push it down for any sort of effect that you're going for. Luckily, the setup has control to customize. That's the whole point of this video. I'm teaching you these concepts so you can customize it yourself. So let's go ahead and play what we have here. Now, one thing that we can do to sort of improve the dynamic nature of this is we can kind of just say, okay, well, maybe it comes too close to him and I really want it to raise up. So we can literally grab this, right? By just clicking with the position brush selection, we can literally just grab it and raise it. So now all of a sudden, it just turns into this different animation where, ooh, now we're on a crane. So now that we're in the 3D mode, we can sort of adjust these heights and we can say, okay, well, maybe this comes too close. We can bring it in. Maybe we want to change the focal length. These are all things that we would decide here, right? So maybe for this specific shot, I want to go to like 24. Now we have our full subject in frame, but we're coming in and we're covering height as well. I just made some small little adjustments there, trying to make this feel a little bit more natural, and we're probably going to now get into where we want it to be fast and slow. So if you've ever seen me animate a camera, it's a lot of, no, I don't like that. Yes, I like that. No, I don't like that. Yes, I like that. That's realistically how I animate. All right, let's see how this is looking so far. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so I'm thinking that we can actually make the fast part at the beginning, moving hold in this little central part, and then we can make a fast exit. So for that to happen, we're going to take this linear graph and we're going to add our handles back. And we're going to start with just cranking these handles down so that our middle part is flattened out because value goes up and down, time is left to right. And let's see what happened there. Interesting. The more that we crank this down, the more it's going to move through this middle hold. Okay, so here's what it looks like from the top view. We have it sort of pausing in this middle section, and we can kind of adjust it so that maybe it pauses more when it makes that turn by just adjusting these handles. The key is in the handles. And you can see how the speed is just all being calculated upon this spline. So you can really do whatever you really want with it. But I'm just going to go ahead and just do these slight little pop adjustments. And what you can actually do once you have your interpolation in a decent place, you can start to work with the spline to change the animation too. So maybe if I changed it here, this will change my feel. So if I just change the actual spline point as well, since it's an organic spline, it's all gonna like play a factor in the camera move. But the reason why this is super versatile is because if you had a bunch of like buildings in the way of all this stuff, right? And you needed to get around the buildings, but still make the shot, that's why we have techniques like this. So, you know, we can go around those objects, as you can see here. Now, let me go ahead and delete these cubes for reference. And I'm going to go ahead and group this into number 1. So I'm going to take the null, the spline, and the camera, and I'm just going to drag it into a null. That's called number 1. And what we can do is just double click these little buttons on the side and they actually just turn off the entire thing. And we can get into number 2. Camera animation number 2. This is what I call the finder camera. This camera should feel like it's finding your subject. All right, so we're going to start off the same way that we started with the other cameras, Redshift. We're going to go to camera, standard. But this one is going to be a bit of a long camera. We're going to take this focal length right here. I'm going to move it to the left so you can see me. And we're going to set it to 100. Now what this is going to do is it's going to flatten out the perspective, right? In layman terms, it's basically zooming in. But what it's doing to the perspective is it's flattening it out. It's giving it a different look. So what we're going to do with this camera is we're going to go to the coordinates and we're kind of just going to zero out everything and we're just going to move it back in Z position. So everything is zeroed and we're just moving it back in Z position. I'm going to move it back to about negative 5,000 centimeters. We're going to make our subject pretty small. Let's set our Y value at 90 because our subject is 180 centimeters. Essentially, the idea here is we kind of just want to find the subject and we want to zoom in and then we want to whip away. So the 2 values that we're going to prioritize here are going to be this first level of rotation, H, and a little bit of the tilting from B. This would be translated to X rotation and Z rotation. Okay, so I'm going to go to my window right here and I'm going to open up my F curve. I'm going to dock it here below. You see our aligned to spline animation. We're just going to keep it on object so that when I make an animation on the X rotation or the H rotation, it's going to show right here. Now I'm thinking I'm going to set this first one at about 20, lock in that keyframe. And I'm going to take about 15 frames to find the subject. I'm going to overshoot it a little bit, and then I'm going to reset it around 40 frames. And I'm just going to take that value and put it to 0. Now, this seems more like a 3-second multi-beat move, so we're going to change our frame count to about 90. This is going to be a 3-second camera move. Remember, we are at 30 frames per second. So by default, this is what Cinema is going to give you when you put in the initial keyframes. We want a real snap, so we're going to bring down that handle. That's obviously going to snap us, but we also want it to settle a lot better. So let's pull out that handle on the right. Now, when we make contact here, we actually really want to feel that camera, its weight and inertia. So a fun little thing we can do here with the Z rotation or the B rotation is kind of just offshoot it here as well. And then let's set it -2 on the other side when it's starting off. We're going to do the same thing with that graph. We're literally just going to yank up that bar so it has a sharp start over a lot of value in a short amount of time. Remember, value is up, down. Time is left, right. So we obviously can't just leave it here. We actually have to make this settle as well. So I can actually copy my keyframe here and I can actually paste it, and we can all do this inside of the F curve like we were doing with the splines earlier this video. So we're going to go ahead and line that up with the other rotation so it connects. And we're just going to bring this down so it's a very subtle effect realistically. Make sure that when you bring it down, you bring your handles down as well so nothing janky happens. You can get this by scrolling in with your mouse. And we can actually take this handle right here and crank it so that it gives a little bit of extra overlap and follow through. I'm going to take these keyframes and just drag them out a little bit more so we can get a little bit more of that finder and readjustment feel. I'm going to drag out these keyframes a little bit. Just sort of feel this. I want to feel the weight, so I often make sure that there's no gray area on the side that's not going to be in the frame. And right when it settles, I want to make sure that we zoom in with this camera. So I'm going to make sure that the endings are very smooth. So we're panning, we see it, we pan over, and then at about 40, that's when I believe we're going to take our focal length right here in object, and we're going to dial it in to about 200 here. As you can see, that's flattening our perspective. We're going to go ahead and press focal length, grab its handles, and really crank them so it's really a pinch zoom, like so. You know, the fun thing about 3D is we can actually have unlimited lenses because it's 3D, so we can go in as far as we want, or we can start this as close as we want with the Z positioning. Say we put it at, let's say 4,000. It's going to get a little bit closer. And that's how this is looking right here. Now just adjusting these handles, you're going to get the pinch that you want. And as soon as I get the pinch that I want to flick this off frame with a whip pan. So I'm just going to take that and whip it out of frame. Since the focal length is actually quite long now, we don't have to go much on the rotation, and it's going to whip out pretty snappy. We can check those new keyframes right about here. And we can draw out this handle right below my cameras perfectly. Actually, I'm looking at it, it's perfect. And that's essentially going to delay the exit. Now, if we take this keyframe right below my camera here and we make it a sharp one, it's going to make the exit a lot snappier, but we really just have to decide where it's leaving frame and make sure that's the snappy part. There we go. And it's okay that it's easing at the end because it's literally off frame. As long as we have that ramp going down, just imagine if there was a little tiny skater on the bottom, you know, scaling your graph. You know, where is he going to drop in with the most heat? It's going to be where it's dropping the most. So I'm just adjusting the keyframes a tiny bit here just so that we have a little bit more of a pause and an exit. Okay, I'm just going to drop our ending keyframe to 20 as well because that's where we started. Hopefully this gives us a little bit more snap at the end. What we're also going to do is we're going to match the rotation on our blue graph here, which is our B rotation or Z rotation. Now I'm just literally copying and pasting stuff with Control C, Control V. My camera's blocking it a little bit, but essentially the last frame and the first frame are the same. So essentially that's what's happening here. We are just making sure everything sort of connects. What you'll actually notice is that there is a little bit of a jolt, and I think the key here is going to be, I'll show you guys so it's not blocking. The key is actually going to be making sure this ramps up so it continues in the same sort of direction. Boom, and then it goes the other way. So the perfect, you know, looping of that actually wouldn't be to go at the same value, and that's a good lesson to take in. Sometimes you have to just be going the same direction. So it's going up, same slope. You're matching the slope. If you remember taking it back to algebra class, it's going to, you know, it's going to flow better. You know, I actually edited this graph a little differently than how I just explained, and we could take that route, but I was still feeling a little bit more of a jolt, and I think it actually needs to ease around the same value right here for the beginning and the end. Now you can see the camera animation on the lower left now. My camera was kind of blocking it. I feel like it does have a lot more of a suave sort of finding effect in this interpolation of the keyframe graph. Now what it was before, it was just really sharp like this. So we're just bringing it down so the sharpness kind of happens at the, you know, 10 frame mark. And then we're kind of doing the same thing here. We just don't want the sharpness happening off frame. And that's kind of what was happening, is it was giving this weird effect where it wasn't really happening until it was off frame. So everything I was saying before is valid, but this is just sort of the way that I animate cameras. Sometimes I will like something and then I'll be like, wait, can we do this better? And it's honestly good that I kept that in because, you know, sometimes you need to make something and critique it yourself and change it. And that's personally how I animate. I think I really like this setup because my camera isn't blocking anything important like the graph editor, which is extremely important for this video. So locking in camera animation number 2, the Finder camera, we are heading on to camera animation number 3. Camera animation number 3 is called the Smash, Shake, and Whip Pan. This one is inspired by real explosion footage. Just imagine a smash shake on impact and then a whip pan out of there. Like an explosion happened and then the camera is getting moved out of the way. First thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our camera standard and we're going to zero it out. Let's start about 1500 centimeters back into Z space, and I'm thinking about 24 millimeters for the camera angle. So what we're going to do is things with the rotation similar to what we were just doing, but we're going to animate a shake. A lot of people use presets to animate their shakes, but it's important to know what actually is happening in a shake and what it's made out of. The people who actually made these plugins for all these shakes. Nobody really knows how to keyframe a shake anymore. This is how you keyframe a shake. Okay, first we're going to activate all of our rotations. Then 2 frames in, we're going to essentially just jerk it to the bottom right. So we're just going to go here, and we're just going to go a little bit more down and a little bit more to the right. We're going to establish those keyframes. Then basically we're gonna go 2 more frames and we're just gonna literally jerk it to the top left. So to do that, we essentially have to go the other way on this rotation. We have to bring it up on this rotation. And then what we're gonna do is around 18 frames, 15 to 20 frames, we're gonna just zero these things out and we're gonna let them settle out. Now we're gonna end up offsetting them a little bit more. We just want to like have a little bit more of that variation. That's going to add realism. And of course we're going to animate the Z, but we're going to animate the Z separately. So just adjusting these here. I don't want them to be too large of a jump. Got to make sure that it's somewhat contained. It still feels like a vibration. Dragging this graph, just gonna drag out my green graph right here, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start animating on the Z rotation or the B rotation. I might just start referring to them with the colors so it becomes easier for the video. Okay, by 5 frames, I definitely want it to have a little bit of a tilt to the right, and then by 10 frames, I'm gonna have it tilt to the left, and then I'm gonna have it resolve by, you know, the same frame as the other rotations. And as you can see, this is what it turns out to be. So I'm just going to shorten my frame ranges here so you can really feel it. That is sort of the shake that we can get just from keyframing rotations. Now, if you wanted to sharpen up any of these or extend the handles like so, let's just gotta add in a little bit more spice on certain angles and a little bit more of a pop. You know, to get your final feel, you can do what you please, you know, but it's probably best to stagger like so you can have a little bit more of that offset. As you can see, when I stagger it, it has a lot more offset, but you want to make sure that you're not doing it too much, because then you might get something that feels more disconnected and slidey. But I think that's where I'm gonna land on. Just went back to what I originally had. I really like how that's sort of settling. It's basically saving them with the keyframe default, so let's just keep on moving it along. As soon as it settles, we're gonna want to smash zoom in. So let's start the animation at 10. Let's end it at 40. Let's go ahead and set our millimeter length to 100. We're gonna select this graph here and we're just gonna make it tight. We're gonna make it a tight pinch zoom, and it's gonna really jump up around this area. We're just gonna extend those bars to make that happen, as we've been doing. And that's going to allow us to cover a lot of distance, but if we just extend them more, it's going to feel really like a pinch, and the more we do it, the more it's going to pinch. I'm really liking that. I think all we're really missing is a little bit of this chopped off, just a little bit of these vibrations. Just overall don't have to be as big, maybe. And once we get to this point, all we're gonna do is the same exit, the same slide exit that we did before. We'll take our animation here at 35 and we will exit it to the right side with rotation. So let's just put this value at about 20 and let's see what it's given us right away. Now that's a little bit too slow. Let's just make that a little bit faster. We just draw out those bars. The key is really in these Bezier handles. Did I say handles or handles? Because these handles are the key to literally everything we do inside of animation. Now I'm really liking how that is looking, because that is giving that pop. It's a 45 frame transition, which is similar to a broadcast transition. This is really perfect for honestly like a logo smash and just a pan away. I'm really liking number 3. I think that came in, you know, probably the quickest one that we got to do, but I think it came out the best. Honestly, that gives a lot of energy. Number 4 is really going to be a fun one, so stick around and we're going to head into that now. Camera animation number 4 is called the rolling vibration or the micro shake. It's probably the easiest, but it's the most important and probably the most versatile too. All right, we're going to start off with Redshift Camera and Standard. Let's go ahead and get into this camera's focal length. We're going to make this one 100 millimeters. And then from here, let's just make it around, 1200 centimeters away. Let's get a little bit closer. And the first thing we're going to do is animate the Y animation. So let's make a keyframe on our Y animation. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make another keyframe on our Y animation. Now opening up our Y animation graph here, I'm going to go to the third frame and I'm going to raise it to 91. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these 3 keyframes, copy, paste, go to the end, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, and copy, paste until we get to the end. There we go. Now what that's going to do is it's going to start us off on our first layer of this animation. I'm just going to make our viewport a little bit bigger here because we're going to be dealing with such small animation now. It's important to see where our frame starts and begins. Alrighty, so that's what the micro shake is looking like right now. We are trying to make it look like we are in a vehicle right now, and we are experiencing some disturbance, so it's unstabilized, but it's stabilized at the same time. This should loop, so we're going to go ahead and attack our next keyframe. Alrighty, so the next keyframe is definitely going to be on the P axis. On this axis of animation, we can also call this the Y rotation. We're going to make bigger strokes. So let's go like 8 frames in. We're going to make this go up. And then let's go, 16. Let's go 18 frames in. Don't try to make it completely perfect because this one's not going to line up perfectly. Just set another one, 23. Set one at 28, like 33 maybe. Just create like a little bit more disturbance in this part. Let's go 38, we'll go down, set the keyframe. And we set the last ones at 43 and 45. Now, right now, these actually are way too big of movements. So we're just going to zoom in with our mouse to the actual graph and we're literally going to bring them down. So they're like micro movements, right? So like 0.1 probably is where we want to be here. There we go. You see, that's giving us some extra oomph without even really seeing it. And this is that offset right here. And it's going to loop perfectly because we're ending on the same value of rotation. Okay, so for the last rotation, what we're going to do is we're going to animate the B or the Z rotation. Let's initialize a keyframe right here. Let's go to frame 8 and let's go into the negative and let's keep it in decimals. So 0.3. Let's go to frame 13 and just do, positive 0.3. Boom. Let's go to frame 18 and just do the same thing, negative 0.3. Let's go to frame 23 and reverse it again. And you got to remember, if you're on a road, it's not going to necessarily be completely linear. There's going to be different types of rocks, sticks, disturbances, right? So you got to understand that some of these actually have to be a bit random and they are up to your choosing. So let's go to frame 28, negative 0.3. Go to frame 33 and reverse it again. Frame 38, negative 0.3, and I believe that's actually going to be close to our last one as we reset it to 0 here. And you have to understand that for the Y animation, we copy and pasted it because the Y animation could be responding to the more linear or the more sturdy and predictable rotation of a tire or the automobile or whatever is moving forward. But the rotations account for little disturbances that might happen in the road, the pavement. You got to think about all these different things. These are different things that we see and we feel when we really watch it, and we don't know why we feel that it's super realistic, but it's because of these certain things. You gotta account for how things happen in real life. I actually do a series about literally taking real life reference videos on my TikTok, and it actually does really well. People seem to really relate with this, but this entire YouTube video is almost knowledge learned from literally taking real life reference videos. Okay, so what we're gonna do with this rotation is we're actually going to make it a little bit sharp. We're going to make them look like, let's say, like little canopies or, little arches where we have the bottoms of them bouncing up and the tops of them are more flat. So we'll just drag that out, and then there we go. We have a little bit more of these like canopy things, golden arches, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, but this is what we got. And yeah, let's check this out. I am really liking that. I think that is really dynamic. There's multiple axes of rotation going on. This is a loopable animation, and you can bake out all these keyframes. But I'm really liking how that's looking there. It's not perfect. Everything's not the same, right? But that's what adds more oomph to it. That's what adds more realism to it. Let's go ahead and name this number 4. We're gonna make a null like the other ones and put it in there. That is number 4. And we will exit out of that animation right there. Obviously, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 from everything that we went through in this video. Just to recap, we have the curvy spline animation. We have the finder camera animation. We got the smash, shake, and whip pan animation. And finally, what we just did, we got the micro shake or the rolling vibration animation. I'm gonna deselect them all so you can see that these little red buttons on the side, they actually just hide them, but they're all still here, still playing. And there they are. When you zoom out, you can see them all happening. These ones in the top-down view look kind of crazy because they're not really moving as much as this one. You can see each one has a use case, and it's up to you to, you know, try this YouTube video out for yourself if you have Cinema 4D, or you could just get this actual file. And I'm pretty sure there are ways to actually take this camera data and this positional data and translate it into other programs. So if you don't have it, it's always possible to get the trial, get the animation out, and then put it in your program if you really wanted to use it, because Maxon does have a trial thing. But also with this pack, I'm going to be including part 1 and part 2 in the Gumroad files. So if you got to this video, you deserve the first 2 as well. So in this pack, it's going to have all 3 of the videos combined into one pack. Once you start stacking these together, your renders won't look like CGI anymore, and instead they're gonna look like they were shot, like they were filmed. Even if you can see that it's 3D, they're still gonna look like, wow, there's some taste here. Part 4 is gonna take this even further, so stay tuned for that. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on those post notifications. Don't forget to check out the Gumroad. Don't forget to check out the Motion Shop, buy a hat, and I will see you in the next video.